This is the Giraffes Don't Eat Steak podcast, a show that brings you marketing stories, tips, hints, and much more. A treat for those who want to succeed in business or marketers who just want to learn. Hello, Alex.
Hello, how are you doing?
I am good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well.
Brilliant, brilliant. What's been up with you this week? Any more trophies? Anything else happening?
No more trophies. There is actually a competition this weekend, but unfortunately, I can't make it this weekend. So,
Oh,
uh, I can visibly, I can already hear the sigh of the relief from my would-be competitors that I'm not turning up.
okay. Well, not humble
Well,
at all, are we? Not humble at
I
all.
mean, they say half the battle is your confidence. So. If you're not confident, you're not going to win. Anyway,
That's
yeah.
true.
No, don't have any lined up at the moment, but I will do. Watch out, people. I'll be coming for you soon.
Well, thinking of battles, often wherever we worked, right, we ended up having battles with other departments, sales,
No, we
operations,
never had a battle with anyone. It was
legal compliance.
plain sailing all the time. Never.
And especially when you're new to marketing, it can be quite overwhelming, right? Having all these people who think they know marketing. Everyone thinks they know marketing. Isn't that the problem? Everyone's like, marketing's easy, especially now. Actually, I had this chat with someone this week. With ChatGPT, everyone now thinks that's marketing done.
Yeah.
Haven't
That's
you haven't you noticed that?
No, of course. And the worst thing is if somebody asks a question themselves into ChatGPT, let's say the compliance person or whoever it is saying, asking a question about a marketing campaign, and it comes back with the textbook response of you need to do, and then they will say, take that, believe that over a human's experience, and say, well, I challenge you because actually ChatGPT says Facebook is the best thing that we should be doing.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. Oh, I know where I was having this conversation. I actually presented marketing to a school, to sixth formers, and trying to convince them to choose marketing as a job choice, right? But I was focused on marketing strategy because I think, and this is, I'll love your take on this. I think that's going to be the future of marketing is the strategy of taking all this input of ChatGPT or DeepSeek or whatever it is, and actually making sure it aligns to the strategy of the company and the most important, what your target audience needs. Because as much as you can put into the prompt, right, my target audience, there's nothing like someone with an overview to pull it together and make sure it stays aligned. What do you think of is that as the future career of marketing?
I feel like that's what I'm already doing now.
Hmm.
I'm starting to do that. I'm using I actually use Claude, by the way.
Yeah. No, I also
You,
like Claude.
you mentioned Claude, so I feel a bit offended. Me and Claude are good friends. Um, I am using Claude as though it's sort of I have a team that I'm kind of bouncing my thoughts and ideas off to structure the stuff that's going on in my head. So I'm asking Claude to kind of organize what's going on in my head, and then I can um, and it spews out into a nice organized form for me to say, okay, this is what's going on in my head. This I can see. This is not really working. This probably is more aligned to what I should be doing. And then at that point, I'm refining what I have in my brain, but I'm using Claude as the file organizer, if you know what I mean, in my brain. Because sometimes I felt like the the challenges I have personally in my brain is I have lots of stuff going on in my head, and sometimes it's hard to be able to structure it in a way that makes sense to me and other people from an external point of view. So I'm using them as my kind of research and sounding board, if that makes it. Not really a sounding board because they're not giving me advice, but I mean to take what's in my head and putting it into an articulate form. Um, so in a way, I'm kind of using it, and the AI always adds some additional information that it thinks is relevant to the subject that you're talking about. And at that point, I can use it to analyze whether or not that fits with my vision for the strategy or not.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's quite interesting. So, I mean, these guys were super eager. I obviously spoke about Giraffes Don't Eat Steak, only to find there wasn't a single vegetarian in the room. I mean, that's never happened to me ever. But so be it, quickly changed tactic. But actually, we had a great example because I asked them to give me examples, and we used a plumber.
Used a what? A plum.
Plumber,
Oh,
plumber,
plumber.
plumber.
Okay.
They threw
Okay.
a plumber back at me as the job
Well,
I want to
I'm
analyze.
glad they didn't throw a plum back at you.
No, not a plumber,
It's a
plumber.
completely different experience.
But it was fascinating because I thought it was a great example, right? We spoke about whether the plumber did nail in the foot or pebble in the shoe scenarios. And these 17-year-olds threw back at me that it was both, which is really interesting. And then we spoke about the different marketing strategies needed to apply to those scenarios. You know, if your toilet is flooding and you need help now, basically the plumber just has to pitch up and say, I can come tomorrow, and it's done, right? Whereas if you just maybe need something moved or new pipes, it's longer term, it's people in the shoe. But we started talking about influence and how many other people get involved in the process of marketing. And it made me think of the scenarios where, for example, we had to get legal and compliance to sign off on our material, right? Because in the insurance regulated environments, that is the process, it's required by the regulator. But often they would go and edit themselves or rewrite the copy or and it's, I would have to push back because they don't understand the target audience, the direction, what you're trying to achieve. Do you remember those days?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So I was thinking through strategies that we can help anyone listening going through the same thing, strategies for how to manage that. What do you think? How did we manage it? How did you manage it, Alex, when you've got lots of people trying to be marketers, to be copywriters, to be brand strategists and telling you how to do your job?
Well,
Because
I think, I mean, it's first of all, it isn't actually an easy thing to do
no.
straight off the bat. There's quite a lot of work to do. So I would like just to make that clear up front, and there will be some work involved. The first thing I think that we eventually kind of got to is that, you may be in a company doing marketing, but for your product or service, but there's also elements of marketing inside the company. And what I mean by that is when you're communicating to someone about your idea and trying to get their input from, if it's a compliance, you do need their input because you need to make sure that your copy is kind of watertight from a compliance point of view. But you do need to try and put yourself in their shoes a little bit, like you would with understanding your client for your product and creating a communication that is aligned to their needs. So you need to have that same mindset when you're speaking to anybody else in the company and you're either trying to sell your idea or get something signed off. Understand from their point of view, what is it that they're looking for and what is it that what interests are they trying to protect? And from a compliance point of view, they're obviously trying to protect the businesses point of the business side, but also their own side, because they don't want to be at the end of the day, the buck stops at them in terms if there's any complaints over the marketing copy or anything like that, as they were the ones who'd signed it off from a compliance point of view. So you got to kind of understand that first of all, and try to approach it with an understanding of what they want, rather than just going in with an aggressive tone and saying, this is exactly what I want. I don't want it changed at all. I'm going to lose everything if you even change a word. So I think, yeah, I mean, that was a kind of a long-winded way around, but my first approach would be really to understand what they will want to get out from that situation.
Yeah, that's actually a good one. I actually hadn't thought about that internal communication aspect at all, but I agree. I hear what you're saying and I agree. I went more practical in my approach. I'm like defining roles and responsibilities. Your role is to make sure it's compliant. So if it's not compliant, tell me where, and I will rewrite it because my job is to communicate the message in such a way that it will convince people to buy. That's my job. So I will rewrite it to be compliant. Because what I was finding is legal compliance were trying to be copywriters. And so they would rewrite it, but they don't understand the target audience. They don't understand, there's certain, we know in marketing, there's nuances to urgency, to frequent, like there's reasons you do things, right?
Yeah. And if you couple that with wanting to learn, and over a period of time of when, if you're writing messages frequently, then you will be going through compliance regularly,
Yeah,
weekly,
often.
3 times a week, and take approach that with an eagerness to learn, because you'll reduce the friction over a period of time. If you start to understand what is and what isn't acceptable from a compliance point of view, you can start to integrate that into your future messaging. And again, I think that this is where the kind of the empathy, the putting yourself into someone else's shoe, understanding your client, in this case, it's the compliance officer, and yeah, being open to that so that you can really absorb and learn a little bit more about what is acceptable from a compliance point of view and what is not. And that will really, really help you. And it's the same with if you want to get budget signed off.
Yeah,
We were talking about this the other week about, if, for example, if you're in insurance and you have a campaign, but you're only presenting the direct returns from the first payment. Actually, what you need to do is think about what the finance person wants. He wants to understand,
yeah,
he just wants to see the bottom ROI. And if you're showing them, if you say, I know this campaign is really good, I've seen it working really, really well elsewhere. This is what we will get from these leads in this month. But I know it's really good. I know really well. That will never work. You need to say, okay, well, look, we've got the lifetime value of this customer, and if we keep doing this, then we get certain referrals from this, and it also has the halo effect where we'll see uplift here and here and here. So we have an estimated return. So you need to really. So if you're trying to sell your brilliant, beautiful marketing campaign, the finance person doesn't care how shiny the video is that you made. They don't
yeah,
care at all. All they
yeah.
care about is what the bottom line will look like at some point, and you need to put your best foot forward.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. Understanding what whoever is giving input or sign off, what their needs are and what their focus is vital, right? Because then the strategy to take.
I mean, you taught me that. I remember the first thing you taught, one of the biggest lessons I got from you when we first started working together is when we were doing some internal presentations, especially to the senior team, so like the CEO, the MD, is to understand like what is their language. Like often, I mean, at that point, I was doing a good job in terms of presenting to other marketers, but there are no other marketers. So I could present my idea nicely to you, but then I'd present it to MD, who at that point had I think it was an actuary background.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah, and that's a million miles away from marketing, and that's they don't understand the fluffy talk that we can maybe talk about sometimes, the nice pretty looking things. They don't understand that at all. They want some real financial substance, and action plans clear, 1, 2, 3, very,
Absolutely.
yeah. And so, I mean, yeah, just understanding who you're speaking to is very, very important.
Absolutely. But I think also, for me, the essence of, and it sounds silly, but it feels like my sword in any fight was the fact that I know the target audience.
Hmm.
Because sometimes a change, especially from compliance, sorry, compliance, but we did hit walls a lot, was against the target audience. It it wasn't illegal. They just felt it would be better if you said it this way or something like that. Like just
Hmm.
like I don't mind if it's black and white. Here I would, show me in the law where it says I can't do that. Things like don't use best unless you have stats to prove. I get that. That's fine. But when there's a change that it's, I feel it would be better if you said it this way, and you know in your gut that that will not work. Trying to think of an example. There must be like a real example. But a word that doesn't resonate with your target audience or a phrase that won't work,
Hmm.
then you can stand behind the fact that you know your audience, you've done the research, you've got the background, and that for me worked every time.
Yeah.
Is if I have that, and that's why I say to everybody, you've got to get behind your target audience because it becomes your shield in some of these fights, right?
Mm. But I also feel like, again, kind of putting yourself into other people's shoes. Every person in their department has their own target audience. And what do I
Yes,
mean by that is that as marketing, our target audience is the customer of the product. So we're doing everything we can do to be able to, that we feel that they will understand best, what is their style of communication. Whereas, okay, well, let's go back to the compliance officer. Their target audience is the regulatory company or business or or the the ASA, like Advertising Standards Agency or something.
yeah,
That's their target audience. And they're saying like what they like, which is completely opposite to what we're actually trying to do as a business, where we're trying to showcase our true value for the business. Um, so I think that's also really key, is just to try and understand that. And again, it goes with the MD or maybe a director.
finance, or
The same when you're talking to a director, their target audience might be the CEO. Okay, so
yeah,
then when you're talking to
or
the
investors.
or investors, yeah, exactly. So what is their language? How can I think ultimately everybody wants to do well for the business, but at the same time, everybody also wants to be put their best foot forward. So help them do that. If you're speaking to the director who then needs to speak to, as you said, the investors, do the work for them. Don't make them have to try and translate it and then try and translate it in their words to the because I know we've had examples of that when we've said something to someone and then they've just said it the same way back to the other person. If we'd known they were going to speak to the investor or something, we would
Did
have
it
phrased
differently, yeah.
it. Um, it's the same as when we're marketing to our customers. Like, don't make them think. Make it very easy for them to understand what we're talking about, how to buy it, and it's the same chain, the same process, but internally.
No, absolutely. Yeah, good points, fun and games. I mean, we haven't
And
even touched on the fight with sales yet, but that's
oh my goodness, that's a whole
a
podcast
whole
series.
different ball game.
The other thing as well that I know we mentioned at the beginning about AI and how we're using it. I do feel like um, it it might start to reduce team sizes because, for example, there may be less of a need for a marketing assistant. Now, if you
Yeah,
have someone who can, the AI tools that can speed line some of the implementation or the operational sides, or as I was saying earlier, documenting things. Um, there's another issue that comes from that is if your teams start to get smaller, and I know that I've been facing this as well myself, like as the single marketing person in a business, then it's much harder to fight your battles on your own than if you've got already, if you get a new job and you join into a team of a marketing team of 20 people who have been established for ages, you know, they've got a voice already. But if you go into a new business or a business that is quite streamlined and only has one person per department, and they heavily use on AI tools or something, if you're the sole person in marketing and you're battling against someone who then will fight you back with their responses used on AI, for example, like as we were saying earlier, they'll say, yeah, but this is not what AI says. AI says that generally you should be doing this kind of campaigns. So then the job can be, it takes on a whole new level of kind of, what's the word I want to look for? Not pressure, but
Politics.
politics, and you have to work harder to be able to get your point across because you're the lone voice in the business.
See, I think that's even more important why you are the custodian of the target client. Because I absolutely understand every department has got their clients. But without customers, there is no business.
Yeah,
Okay?
absolutely not.
Without customers, there's no business. Without leads, without sales, there is no business. And then the regulator won't care. Shareholders will be upset. It's not going to win. So understanding who these perfect clients are, your ideal client, exactly how they speak, what would attract them, what's going to put them off, becomes really your shield. I'm such a believer in this because ChatGPT doesn't know, right? If you've really immersed yourself in your target audience, you can talk like them. You need to respond like them. I had a conversation this morning where I said, I'm not invested in this decision. I don't care, right? It's got nothing to do with me. What I'm here is I'm being your customer. I'm in the headspace of your ideal customer. And as your ideal customer, these are the words I would prefer. This is where I'm going to be shopping. Like that is the persona as marketing we need to take on and wear. And that will help us every time. Because a lot of this is going to be personal feelings. Yes, there's regulations or whatever, but a lot of it, it's going to be, I really like the color pink, okay, but the audience doesn't. You want to get Eric on board, do not have pink anywhere in your
Branding.
brand color because that's not going to work. So
Mhm.
it becomes an easy, and then no one can fight that. If your whole team has been aligned on who the perfect person is, then they can't argue going, no, but I still want pink, even though the audience doesn't like it, because then it becomes a silly conversation.
Yeah, I absolutely love what you're saying. The phrase you're using, the custodian of the target audience. I think that's brilliant. Protect it at all costs. Protect its values, its views, its needs, its challenges at all costs.
And every decision should be, what would they like?
Mhm.
What would they do? What would attract them? What's going to chase them? So yes, marketing, we spend a lot of time in marketing because that's what we are. But even operationally, should I put a chat bot on my website?
Mhm.
How will your audience feel about it?
Yeah, exactly.
Why should you waste money on a chatbot if your audience is never ever going to go and use it? No, don't bother, right? Just because it's the latest funky thing to have a chat box, that's time, money, effort, all down the toilet if your audience doesn't want it, right? So it's every decision. And I think if we train, and I love what you were saying about, getting uh, all your stakeholders, your internal stakeholders on board. But I think that's it. Get them on board with the target audience so that they are also making decisions based on the audience.
Yeah, I love that.
That's the way to go, right? Even think how much easier our sales arguments would have been if they got the target audience.
I mean, it would
They would
be
never have taken
night
six
and
weeks to
day.
phone back off a lead.
Yeah.
it wouldn't have happened because they would have got it, right?
Yeah.
So for me, that is your shield. Yeah, and as soon as people understand, because a lot of people think you're making decisions as you, as Erica. But once they understand, I'm never making a decision as Erica. It's not about Erica.
Yeah.
I'm
No, I agree.
irrelevant. I am
Yeah.
here representing Joe, Molly, Bill, whatever we've decided is our target audience. That's who I'm being. I'm representing them in what I'm proposing. Everything else becomes null and void.
I absolutely agree with that. That's very well said. And that applies to whatever size business,
Yeah.
big, large corporations or a small one. But I would say it's almost more important to get like knock that nail on the head immediately on in a small business, a startup, because if especially if it's a startup that has potential for growth, you want that ingrained into the DNA of the company from day one, because as it gets bigger, guess what? Your challenge gets bigger as well to try and get everybody on board with that. But if if you start small and it's already in there and it's in every single piece of onboarding of new employees.
Induction programs, come on, it should be everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Who is the target that we're going after so that everyone feels it? I love that. I'm going to say any learning companies out there who build induction programs, don't just do health and safety and fire and all the stuff. Add in a module on target audience, get your
I love that.
marketing team involved because it's important.
I don't think it's important. I think it's essential. It's critical. I mean, if you do not have it, then you're going to cause delays. You're going to cause argument,
Wasted work,
wasted work, wasted money. You're a lot of wasted.
frustrations. I mean, this way it takes the emotion out, right? There's no emotion in having a debate. If you like pink and I want green, and I'm saying green, if we're arguing based on our emotions, it's a difficult conversation. But
Mm-hmm.
if it's what is the target? There's no emotion. It's out of it, right? It's the target audience, the people we're trying to attract. What do they want? It becomes a completely factual, logical discussion,
Yeah.
which just takes all the fizz out of the fight, right?
Yeah.
There's no
Absolutely.
fight.
Completely agree. Let's uh, let's
Brilliant.
let's campaign for this to be a legal requirement for all businesses.
Absolutely. Get your target audience right, people, because it will be the cornerstone of success, the cornerstone of team unity, of it's just everything. I'm like, oh, I hope those kids that were listening to me on Monday got it. Because if I can get kids to believe it, then we're there, right?
I'm sure they got it. I already know that you told me earlier that a few of them have been contacting you afterwards. So
Yeah, they have. I
you
hope they don't
said
want
something right.
they may be wanting jobs, but let's hope they want to learn more about marketing. Oh, Alex, awesome as always.
Yeah,
Um,
that's great.
pa passionate episode today, guys, but we are passionate about marketing. Look forward to seeing you
All
next
right. Yeah.
time.
See you on the next episode.
Bye.
Bye bye. That wraps up this episode of Giraffes Don't Eat Steak. Thanks for joining us. I hope you found value in our discussion and got some new ideas to apply to your own business. Tune in next week for another round of marketing insights and inspiration. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. We appreciate you listening. Catch you next time on Giraffes Don't Eat Steak.